Hello, welcome to Good Life School. Today we are continuing with the discussion on how to retain what you learn in school. And today our discussion is mostly going to be based on the processes involved in helping us to remember what we learn. Of greater emphasis will be on what we call the procedural memory. The procedural memory is part of the long-term memory that we discussed the other time. And if you actually pay attention to the study of the concept of memory and forgetting, you realize that people who would want to be remembering what they learn or the activities they do normally go through processes. They take themselves through processes, or they allow themselves to go through processes. May I ask you this question at this point? Do you remember the last time that you went for an excursion or a field trip? Do you remember what went on? Can you actually bring to mind the routes that you passed, the stages that you got to, the various challenges you faced, the most intriguing scenes you saw, the most amazing characters that you met, and the activities that you actually undertook during that process? Yes, I think you can bring some of these things back to your mind, even though it has been long ago, maybe 5 years or 10 years ago, but you can still remember some of these things. It's because you were through a process, and because you were through a process, it has formed part of the procedural memory. Okay, it has formed part of it has been ingrained in the procedural memory. Now, tell me, the day after the excursion, do you remember what you were taught in class? In other words, what your lecturer, your teacher, your professor came to teach you, can you bring them to mind? It is because actually you didn't partake in the processes that were involved, and that is why you cannot remember even a word out of that lecture or that class. And that is why it is important that if we would want to remember what we learn, we try as much as possible to put them through a process, through a procedure, and that is where the procedural memory comes in, and it is important. In my previous video, I made mention of procedural memory, but there was no time for me to explain. And today, we want to see how best we can actually use our procedural memory to help us remember what we learn, and how procedural memory associates with the long-term memory, and how we can use this to our advantage. The procedural memory is a type of long-term memory which involves how we perform different actions and skills. And basically, the procedural memory helps us to keep the memory of what we do. Okay, for example, if you remember how you started learning about riding a bicycle or driving a car, or how to walk or how to talk, all these things are remembered because we put them through a process, and therefore they got stuck into our memory. Okay, and therefore it is important that we try and find ways to put our studies or what we are learning through the process or through certain processes, so that at least the procedure can help us to remember them. And it is at this point that we suggest this to you, that if you would want to really improve your learning, then it means that you have to use explanatory method. You must explain what you are learning. Try and explain what you are learning to yourself or to others. And as you try and explain, you'll be drawing certain procedures into your memory, which will form part of the long-term memory, and it will help you to remember what you are learning. As much as you try to explain what you are learning, try as much as to bring in new words, new phrases. You try and translate it or try to interpret it to suit your situation. Mostly, when we try to explain things, we try to make them simpler for ourselves. The more we try and explain it to ourselves or to people who are near us, the more they become simple to us, and the more we are able to keep whatever you are learning. And therefore, we try and explain some of these things to either yourself or to people who are near you. It could be your colleague, students, or it could be your younger brother or sister or anybody at all. Or just imagine it that you are doing it, you are trying to explain it. And as you do that, then what you are learning will keep stuck in your memory. It is as simple as that. Now, in trying to explain what you are learning, try and break them into tasks, simple, small tasks. And you take a particular aspect of what you are trying to explain, you break it down so that you can explain it to somebody who is near you. Try and explain it to a kid, and that way it will help you. Okay? And also, try and put what you are learning through forms of demonstrations. Try to simulate what you are learning. Try to put them in practical situations and try and explain them along. And as you do that, it helps you. It really helps. Yes. And this goes for those who are auditory learners. The other time we spoke about who is a kinesthetic learner, who is an auditory learner, or who is a visual learner. Yes, there is a link at the description box. Try and click on it, and then you will have that video to watch. But for now, we are saying that this helps most if you are an auditory learner. What helps? What helps is that you would have to try and read whatever you are learning to yourself and try and explain it to yourself. And as you hear yourself talking, then all that you are learning will get ingrained into the procedural memory. Okay, and it will be easy for you. Yes. So basically, this is what we would want you to do. If you find this stuff interesting enough and helpful enough, why don't you subscribe to this channel so that you can get more of this as time goes on? And try and give it a thumbs up and share this video to people who may matter. Thank you very much for watching.